Hey nerds, and welcome to Flash, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd. So this week, I thought this was a great episode. It was really strong. There was a lot of hints in there about who Savitar really is, and really that's what I'm focusing on today. There's some other stuff in there, but all of it, in my mind, comes back to the identity of Savitar. And I have three possibilities, and looking around online, seeing what other people thought, these are kind of the three big ones that people tend to latch onto or think are the most possible. So starting with the first possible identity for Savitar, and that is HR. We've talked about this before, that HR isn't who he claims to be. Even Savitar has called him an imposter. So how could they be the same person? Well, without spoiling things that have actually just recently happened in the comics, I will just say that it's possible that HR is actually the villain Abracadabra. Now, we know he's actually going to be on the show, and if you're reading Rebirth, all the stuff there with Flash and Titans and that stuff, you'll understand where I'm going. I don't want to say too much because it just recently happened, and I know some people are reading it but aren't caught up. But I know that's pretty vague, and I talk spoilers on here a lot. But since this is for the comics, and it's a comic spoiler, I'm kind of holding off on that. But Abracadabra and Wally, and if you look at them and how Wally got sucked into the Speed Force, there is a possible connection there. And since Abracadabra is this guy who is a magician from the future, and we know HR is always twirling his drumsticks, very similar to like a wand. It's not too far of a stretch. I mean, it's a stretch a little, but it's not too far of a stretch that HR is someone else. The biggest argument against this, though, is the show has already done the same idea twice, that a person in their midst isn't who they say they are, and they've already done it with a Wells figure. So to do it again would probably upset a lot of fans, like there's no originality, things like that. That is one possibility. The next is Wally. Wally being sucked into the Speed Force. We know Savitar said that Barry would see his creation from when Savitar was originally made very soon. So it's possible that when Wally got sucked in, that is when he got trapped in the Speed Force. And if he's been there so long, for so many years, he says enough to lose his mind 7 times. We have no idea what that means. Time is kind of not really an element when you're in the Speed Force, so it's hard to say how much time actually passes. But with the burning off of Wally's costume, it's possible while he's in the Speed Force, he's going to look something like what Savitar from the comics does. But that being said, we know Barry is going into the Speed Force next week to try and save him. If he can't, and Wally is trapped there for all this time, it's possible that when Barry comes, when Savitar comes out and his mask is finally removed, we will see that it is Wally. This would probably be a huge blow to Barry and everyone, because for Barry, this is another example of how he failed. He wasn't betrayed like he was with Zoom or with the Reverse Flash, but in this case, it would be a failure of his. And you could see how Wally would think that Barry betrayed him by not saving him. So that's how one idea for Wally. And the third idea is that it's actually Barry himself. Now, a lot of people are taking some of what Savitar said, where he said, "I'm your future Flash," or "I'm the future Flash," and making it to say, "I'm the future Flash," not "I'm the future, comma, Flash." So that's where a lot of people initially got the idea. But if you go to the comics, and this happened back in the New 52, so I'm not spoiling anything here, so I will go into this. But there's the Out of Time story arc in the Flash, and what happens is there is a tear in the Speed Force, and anytime Barry was using his powers, he would lose time. And because he was losing time, he wasn't getting to things, he wasn't saving people, a lot of terrible things were happening. So Barry Allen in the future, who has a costume that looks very similar to Savitar's, it's all blue and metallic, and he calls it armor. He is going back through time and kind of fixing his mistakes in order to get back to the point where he can seal this breach in the Speed Force. And that's honestly, I think this is a bigger possibility than it being Wally or HR, because Barry's biggest enemy, his biggest weakness, his biggest adversary is himself. He's always battling himself, his doubts, his fears, all of this stuff. And to literally face himself would be kind of a culmination of everything he is. And he does have to overcome himself in order to be a better Flash. So I think that's why this is very possible. And if you want to know more, I'm still in the middle of researching that Out of Time arc. I haven't finished reading it. So check that out. It's good. It's crazy. A lot of stuff's happening, but you do see a kind of more twisted version of Barry Allen in that storyline. So the parallels between what's happening there and what happens with Savitar are strong. So that's kind of my number one choice, is that Savitar is actually Barry Allen. So what do you guys think? Who do you think Savitar really is? And what do you think we're going to learn in the Speed Force next week? So until next week, guys, I'm Brian from Good Nerd, Bad Nerd, and this has been Flash, Theories, and Conspiracies.